All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you're at in the world, but it is good morning for me. My name is Jim Walker. I'm coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, and I am a member of the Temporal team. And I'm excited today to put on this tech talk about some of the things we allow you to automate with Temporal Cloud. So, welcome to this session. I also kind of just need to give a quick shout to us. This is actually the first in a series of webinars that we're doing about Temporal Cloud. Temporal Cloud is a managed service that we kind of started to go about. It's about a year ago. There's over 800 different customers using Temporal Cloud. We've learned a whole lot, and so over the course of the next couple of weeks, about a month, I say, we'll be walking through how to think about availability and disaster recovery. We've actually built a custom persistence layer for Temporal Cloud, which is pretty interesting. That should be a great session. Was widely popular at our replay event last year. How do you actually estimate actions, and how does the thing actually? What is it going to cost you to run the temporal service in cloud? Helping people understand that, and then if you like all that, we'll help you how to migrate to from a self-hosted temporal service to Temporal Cloud as the managed service. So we're happy to talk through anything with you. Use the QR code, use the link if you want to join. But everybody, thanks for joining. So with that, I am going to ask our two presenters, our talent, to join me now. So Matt and Abhinav, will you join me on screen? Good morning, fellas. How are you?
Hey, Jim. Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning. All right. So Matt and Abhinav, I'll start with you, Matt. Matt, can you just introduce yourself? You know who you are. Kind of. Actually, I want to know where you live. I don't know where you live. We work together, but somehow we don't always know that. And then what team are you on, and what are you working on?
Yeah, my name is Matt. I live in Seattle. I work on the cloud engineering team. I've been there about 3 years. And yeah, when I first got here, it was a lot about building out our automation because we're doing a lot of things manually.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of focused a lot on like our IAM and authentication authorization stories. So
Cool.
yeah, it's a little about me.
You are uniquely qualified to talk about automation and temporal cloud. Thank you, Matt, for joining. And then Abhinav as well. Just where are you, Abhinav? And then what team are you on?
Yeah, so I'm in the Bay Area, in the East Bay, like very close to San Francisco. Yeah, I'm in the same team as Matt is, like the cloud engineering team. Yeah, I joined about like I don't know, say like 4 months after Matt did. So it's been about 2.5 years. So been through the same journey, where we, a lot of like, we'll spend a lot of our time building out self-serve experience for our cloud product. Like that includes like, the UI, the cloud, like, and, the new self-serve APIs that we are putting out there.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining, both of you. Thanks for doing this today. Everybody, this is a good collection of people. Yes, it's not a collection, just the duo here is pretty talented and can do a lot of these things. It's funny, you guys. This is my third time I've been with a company where I had to actually build out a service. These things are not easy to do, I would say, and not in the least. And so kind of temporal cloud is a little bit unique, you guys. Like, what would you say kind of we were trying to solve as, we were doing that? I don't know. I'll start with you, Matt. What were the kind of the key requirements we thought about as we were kind of building out this API that we're going to talk about?
Right. So we started as we were building out our cloud, we started out with, kind of like the bare bones of being able to provision namespaces through our CLI and our website. We quickly started seeing like a lot of our customers who have these complex internal systems and they wanted to do more automation on our control plane. A lot of these are like DevOps use cases, and a lot of times they're driven by security requirements from our customers. So things like just-in-time provisioning of permissions or just-in-time access, sorry, namespaces, or being able to provision namespaces for their employees. Another example is MTLS certificate rotation and yeah, and like user onboarding. But we started seeing
Yeah.
all these complex cases, and we were like, well, yeah, okay, we need an API, and we need to provide automation for our customers.
Yeah. Just a quick point of clarification here, Matt. So if anybody here doesn't really kind of understand what is a namespace, I think about in terms of Linux and other things. So like, Matt, how would you kind of describe a namespace to somebody in the context of Temporal Cloud, or really just
Right.
temporal in general, right?
So a namespace is it's like a very light, we think of it as a very lightweight kind of like container or boundary for your workflows. It's a good point of isolation. So if you have different business use cases, especially like critical business use cases, it makes sense to separate those. Another example is like production and test is our good isolation boundaries, and then also like developer namespaces. And so we've designed it in a way where we want people to be able to easily create a namespace for like a quick hackathon or something, or like a POC, and in that way they feel a little bit more like a GitHub repo or something like that, not like you're provisioning some giant database or EKS cluster or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great explanation. It's kind of one of those things when I first got introduced to temporal and temporal cloud, I was like, wait a second, but it's kind of like a logical boundary around kind of something you want to accomplish with whatever you're doing, right? But I think a key concept but automation of namespaces was definitely one of those things that we're doing, right? So, hey, I want to just spin a dev environment. I want to spin a prod, you know what I mean? Like, I think automating that's the key requirement, right, man? I mean, it was like really speaking to, I guess, DevOps people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's one like customer, and I don't know if everybody calls himself DevOps though, but
Mm, I
the
know,
term
right?
is changing. But I think,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's like internal automation, especially because the expectation is that you can have lots of namespaces in your account,
Yeah.
and that starts getting complicated to manage. If you only have like
Yeah.
3 namespaces in your account, it's fine to use the UI. But I think once you have hundreds of them, we quickly start needing some of these automation.
Yeah.
Uh, People start needing to do automation.
Yeah. I was one of these people who used to like think about scripting my entire world, and now I think about workflowing my entire world. But we'll stop. We won't go there yet. Abhinav, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Man, is it interesting, right? So when we talk about automation and the API that we built, Matt, like what are the big components of it that are kind of there right now that we allow people to automate with Temporal Cloud?
Yeah. So, well, like I said in the beginning, we started with our CLI, which is called
Mm-hmm.
T. And then we launched our website, and we waited a little bit to open up our open APIs, and we recently did that. Abhinav did a lot of that work, and we created gRPC, sorry, Protos, and we open sourced those, and these reflect our public API that we feel are production ready and ready to be consumed by our customers, that contain a lot of these automation capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing is really, yeah, this gRPC API, and then we also launched the ability to use API keys on our control plane. So that's the second part. If you go into your account, you can create API keys now to call these control plane APIs.
Cool. Yeah, and it's interesting all the different ways I think people will start to do this integration with security constructs, like lots of things that I think as Temporal becomes much more mature in an organization, this adoption and this kind of key vector of what we're working on is increasingly more important. I know that because I see it, you guys working on it, and I see a lot of requirements coming in. Actually, there was a great question that came in. Harish, thank you for the question. I don't know, Matt, maybe, yeah, I'll ask you, Matt. So it's just around namespaces. When we deploy namespaces for a customer, do we do it on two separate sets of hardware? Is it, do we choose that? Like, and really, I think the context of the question is around noisy neighbor and this sort of stuff. How do we actually protect
Yeah.
against that?
I think the way that I would answer this is it's not always guaranteed to be on the same on distinct sets of hardware, but we put a
Yeah.
lot of work and effort into making sure there is no noisy neighbor problems. We do different things like partitioning and sharding and to maintain like the isolation between different namespaces. And we try really hard to make sure that one isn't, over consuming, the hardware, so to speak, from other namespaces. So we put in like a ton of effort there, and I think seeing good results. So.
Deploying a service is not easy. Managing an effective, efficient service is even more difficult. I've always said, Matt. And I think that's unique to Temporal Cloud, correct? I mean, because if you're deploying self-hosted, you kind of have to deal with that problem yourself, right? I mean, I think one of the benefits of Temporal Cloud is this, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the thing that might be a little more unique is that, because like I said, we expect to have lots of different namespaces. Because if you're like a database company, you probably have similar problems, but just maybe less machines. Less database instances you're trying to.
That's right.
Whereas we kind of, maybe one thing's a little more unique is that we just have a larger number of namespaces, and it makes the problem space a little bit different.
Yep. Yeah, you're speaking my language. I come from the world of databases for years, dude. And yeah, I don't care. Any service that you deploy as a managed service, it's kind of interesting because you got to build it for each cloud. Man, the complications are just immense. So, but managing these things are different too. So that's cool. Abhinav, let's switch over to you a little bit and talk about how it's used, right? And so, what are people using it for, and how do you actually build workflows and use the API? Like, let's get brass tacks, and y'all stick around. We're going to show a demo in this section as well, but just to introduce that kind of side of the world, Abhinav.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe in November, right before the holiday season, we kind of published APIs for namespace management and user management. So that's the two things we have started with. So using these APIs, you can start by creating namespaces, changing any updating them with new certs or new search attributes or things like that, and also kind of deleting them. And similarly for users, you can invite new users to your account, change what kind of permissions they have to Temporal Cloud, the usual stuff all the CRUD operations that you can do around these two resources. So that's available now. And it's a gRPC API. So we have essentially, like Matt said, we have put the protos out. I guess, yeah, if it makes sense, I can go over those repositories.
And just let's get into the demo, Abhinav, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get the code. And so just one quick thing, that's what it is now. We'll talk a little bit more after the demo, y'all, some directionally where we're going. So stay tuned. But yeah, let's show it, dude.
Yeah. All right. So this is the repository that hosts all the gRPC protobuf files. So currently, like I said, we allow we give you all the tools that that you will probably need for managing your users and your namespaces. So you have stuff like get users, create users, update users, and also around namespaces, the CRUD stuff. And also there are some auxiliary kind of endpoints, what regions are available for your account, where you can create namespaces and things like that. Yeah. So there's a few endpoints, you can go explore those. But I guess if you're looking for a good starting place, right? Wait, I have these protos, but how do I actually use them? And you want to actually a samples, an examples thing, I would actually highly recommend this repository. This is just us building, what this repository really does is it kind of copies over the protos, generates Go bindings out of that, and then actually there are some workflows in here that lets you interact with these APIs. You have workflows run this workflow and get all the namespaces that are available on my cloud, my cloud account, get all the users and things like that. So it's a good place to start, if you really want to try out, see how it all works. So I was hoping to do a quick live demo So for the demo purposes, what I've done is I've created like a personal on my personal account. I've created this repository where I hope to manage let's say a namespace on cloud, right? So this is the namespace that's available on cloud right now that I've created. It's currently, it has like 4 days of retention. Let's see if we can actually update the retention period, using automation, right? Yeah. So let me just go here. Update this to say, oh wait, is that 5? Why is it 4? Oh yeah, that's fine. Never mind. Yeah, there was an update that was missing there. Yeah, so let me just make that 7 days. 7 days a week, and I commit the change. So directly to main, and that kicks off this action, that GitHub action. All right, there you go, and. Okay, so this GitHub action, all it really is doing is, it's going to install like TCTL to actually start a workflow. That workflow will go and actually apply these changes to Temporal Cloud.
Really quickly, what is TCTL?
Oh, TCTL is it's essentially like a CLI binary that you can use to start workflows, do pretty much all the admin kind of jobs around temporal, I guess.
And I'll just add it's our, yeah,
go on, Matt.
Matt,
please. Yeah,
it's our open source CLI.
Yeah.
That's part of Temporal Server.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it started a namespace up. So this is actually where I'm running these workflows. So if you look at it, this is the workflow that got started. Oh wait, yeah, something's wrong. Hold on. Yeah, I think I did not start my worker up. So let me quickly do that.
Here we go, live demos.
Yeah. And there you go. I think it should be in action now. Yeah, so it tried to find the namespace. It found the namespace, and then it actually pushed the update out. Now it's waiting asynchronously for it's polling for for that async operation to finish. And once it's done, it's gonna call success. So it should take a few seconds. Oh yeah, it's already done.
Cool.
Yep. So the change was pushed out, and now I think you should see that update here. So, yeah.
Look at that, it works.
All right, yeah. So that was pretty much the demo. So you can essentially, use these APIs to kind of build your own automation around this. This will hopefully reduce the amount of click ops you do, and hopefully increase your, productivity and efficiency, I guess.
And then Abhinav, I know you're gonna have a demo for this as well, but then we have the concept of API keys as well, so that this is all secure, correct?
Right. Yes. Okay, so yeah, for right now, you can go to settings and click on API keys.
There we go.
And create a new API key here, and just copy it over. All you need to do is when you're sending a gRPC request, add it as a header. So it's actually listed here. There's some documentation around this. Wait, where did that go?
Sorry to make you go off-roading during the demo, buddy, but I knew it was right there in the UI. Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you can create an API key and pass it as a header, when you're making a gRPC request.
So cool. You guys actually, Abhinav, there were 2 questions. I'm going to come back to the first part of the first question, because we want to talk about and the second question is kind of, let me just ask this last one. So do you recommend making an isolated kind of automation namespace for something like this in the event you need to take an action because the service is degraded or there's some sort of issue? What's the best practice around that?
I would highly recommend that. It's essentially you need a namespace that actually can run workflows for you, that actually manage namespaces, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think we do that same. We do the same on our control plane, where we have these isolated namespaces where we run most of our workflows. Yep.
And it comes back to kind of what you were saying before, Matt, right? You're just going to basically create namespaces for kind of particular things that you want to do. It doesn't cost you a whole lot, but it helps you organize and kind of isolate, correct?
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, cool. And so, Abhinav, you and I were kind of laughing about this yesterday. We were talking about things, but this is a very meta kind of demo here, right? Because it's temporal running on temporal, kind of, right? This is a workflow to run a workflow. And actually, so Tristan, thank you for the question. And somebody anonymous kind of picked up on this as well. Is there a hazard? Basically, because what you're doing is you're using a workflow to execute workflows. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? How does this kind of come together? Let's talk about that first. And then let's
Yep.
talk about like, is there problems or risks? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can talk a little about like how the control plane is built, right? Like on our end. Our control plane essentially is just workflows.
Yeah.
But, it's like everything is a workflow, including like the request that we did right now, where like we did like an update namespace operation that essentially was like handled by a workflow on our end. So maybe I could just quickly show you like like some idea like yeah, you make a request. What we do is we kick off a workflow, and that spins and actually orchestrates all of that like operation. Like oh yeah, you know what, that retention period needs to go all the way to the data cell and like to the temporal instance, like there. So like that kind of orchestrates and pretty much spins up like more workflows to like achieve what it needs to do. And while like when you poll and try to figure out if that async operation is done or not, all we do is like really query the workflow status. So this is like a pattern that we use like in our stuff. So the advantages here is like it makes a lot of these async operations very durable. There's a lot of advantage here. There is a lot of debuggability that comes out of the box where oh, you know what, yeah, this request is not working, something happened here. I can just go look at the lights, like look at all the history there, figure out like what got called, like with what state, and it's pretty neat, like how all of that fits in.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
the durability I think is the key thing here,
key,
right?
right?
It's
Yeah,
not going to fail,
yeah,
and if it
yeah.
does, it's going to retry. You're setting retry policy, so
Exactly. Yeah. So,
yeah.
we, even if there's like a downstream service that has some issues, or like, we have like some connection issues or whatever, the workflow keeps trying to reach to that stage, that desirable state that, you just, ask for, I guess, with your request.
Yeah. And scale as well. We just kind of
Yep.
scale pretty easily. Yeah. So I don't know. For me, anybody who's running a service out there who's not using Temporal, I'd like to have conversations with them because they're like, oh, wait, this is a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's funny. The last company I was at, Matt, was the database company thing. You know what I mean? And they have their own managed service and all these like custom made jobs. I'm like, guys, you should check out durable workflows. It makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. So it's very meta, kind of this like temporal on temporal thing, but pretty useful. I think it's also interesting to run these things as kind of long running workflows as well. And I think that's kind of one of those things that's a little bit more cranial and a little bit more advanced. But so thank you for the demo, Abhinav. Like that's a really good kind of high level over. I hope that was valuable for everybody. I did want to keep this kind of within a half hour. Probably going to go a little bit long here, everybody. I just want to be respectful of time. But Matt, we saw some great things. You talked to kind of what we did. Like, what's next? Where else are we going? Like, what are the big kind of groups of stuff that we're working on?
Yeah. So I think where I want to start with this is we care a lot about the developer experience because we're also like a company built by developers. And so we're really like listening to your feedback and what everybody is asking for. Some of the big things top of mind for me are and sorry, the API keys and API and open public APIs we publish are kind of like our first steps to provide value, as soon as possible, and work incrementally from there. But the next things on our plate are, better user management and automation, better user management automation. So things like investing more in SAML, SCIM, automatic user onboarding use cases. And yeah, because we know that not everybody wants to use API keys to do that.
Right.
Another thing on top of my mind is MTLS. So I think a lot of customers don't want to use MTLS or don't want to be required to use MTLS for all their namespaces. And so providing API keys as a way to do authentication with your workers is another big thing for us. And what else? Oh yeah, and then also just more fine-grained permissions. So we're also a very like security conscious company. And we've been receiving a lot of feedback on, hey, like it's nice that you have these roles, but we would like to have a little more control. So we're investing in that as well. And yeah.
Cool. So Matt, you did that all very well without getting in too deep of trouble. I know nobody's going to be like, hey, y'all, we're an engineering org like you all are. We definitely have things we're working on every day. But we don't want to paint it. We're also careful around kind of like what we're going to talk and what we're going to release. they only have X amount of resources. But I think the key part, Matt, is what, like a lot of this came through like what, community Slack and your interactions with customers. I mean, how do we hear about these things and these requests, and how do we prioritize? I know Jonathan and the product team helps with that, but like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely listening to customer feedback of the customers we have today. And we have meetings and stuff, and yeah, we use different tools to collect feedback and analyze it. But then I think also just like intuition, just us being customers ourselves internally of the product. As
right.
Abhinav just showed, right? Like we're using Temporal every day internally as well. So we're pretty aware, and these are the pain points that everybody feels is probably the same ones that we feel. So that's also a big part of us, I guess, empathizing with our users, but then also kind of having an intuition on what we should build next.
You are our user, Matt. So, well, great, you guys. Thank you for that. Everybody on the call, I hope that was helpful for everybody. It was just a touch of kind of what we're doing. But Abhinav and Matt, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this, you guys. I hope everybody had a good thing. Wait, there was one other question here. Let me just see here. All these features are all these features alone in a standalone server? I presume self-hosted, and I'll let you answer that, Matt. And then, are we thinking about open policy integration? So, A, are these features in kind of self-hosted, and then B, are we thinking about open policy integration? Yeah.
Sorry, let me read this again. I know, special activities.
Really, it's around open policy
I'm
more than
not familiar
anything.
enough
Yeah.
with open policy integration to speak on that. Sorry for that.
Okay. Cool. We'll follow up with an answer, Jeffrey. But this is all basically unique to Temporal Cloud, guys. Like this is stuff that we built to manage our own cloud, as Matthew talked about, and we put it out there for lots of different things. So it's all useful to those using Temporal Cloud. So one last thing here, guys. Mike is asking, isn't CLI been deprecated as a result of our functionality being combined in the, I think we now have the overall executable. It's not, it's been rolled up, right? Isn't that right, Abhinav? Yeah.
It's still in the process. I don't know if it's already deprecated, but I think we do want to deprecate at some point, I think. Temporal TCTL. Yeah.
Stay tuned, y'all. We'll speak about that in our changelog. We'll speak about that in the community Slack. And so, yeah, stay tuned. But thank you for the question, you guys. So there's no other questions. Let me just look at chat really quickly, but I don't think there's anything else. There's some other things that I hear, guys, that are not directly related to the API. I don't know. Abhinav, I don't know. Do you want to take this one? Like, is there a difference in performance if we use Go versus JavaScript SDK? I mean, the service is the service, right? Like,
yeah, these are essentially just gRPC calls that you make. So there's not that performance driven. So it should not matter, I think.
Yeah. And quite honestly, guys, like the work that the team has done, and your peers and yourselves, you guys, around driving latency down for Temporal Cloud over the past year has been phenomenal. Like we consistently see people who are self-hosted shift to cloud, and they're like, wow, that was a huge, amazingly enough, this huge massive increase in kind of latency. So if you're interested around like availability, disaster recovery, some of the stuff around latency actually will be talked about in a future episode. On February 1st, the custom persistence layer helps us do some things there. This is a series on some of the things that we do within Temporal Cloud. So I would encourage you all to either register one-off or for the series if you want to. It'd be great to see you all there as well. But I just wanted to thank Matt and Abhinav one last time. And Milena, who's in the background helping with a whole bunch of stuff, you guys, is not to be not thanked, is to be thanked, I should say. Right? Yeah, that's what I meant. So a lot of double negatives in me today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us as well. I hope this was valuable to you. Please provide us feedback. If you can, join us in our community Slack. We'd love to engage with you. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to basically build our own roadmap based on what you all are feeling. I think, Matt, it's such a big deal that we empathize because we are users, but It's also important to hear what y'all doing. So please do engage with us. And on behalf of everybody here at Temporal, A, thank you, Abhinav, Matt, for speaking, but B, more importantly, thank you everybody for joining us today. And with that, have a great day. Bye now.